Hi, I'm Linda, and we're here at Little Farmhouse Flowers, and I'm going to show you around. In front of the house here, I am planting mostly perennials, but some annuals here and there, and we're starting to think about how we can turn this space into a really welcoming location. So I'm thinking about adding a lot of raised beds and creating this sort of magical experience. What we've learned in the last couple of years is that people are really excited to come and see this space. We see them driving by really slowly and pulling out their phones and trying to video the farm, and we know that this is a place that people want to come to. So now that I've kind of settled into our farm and I'm really discovering which plants thrive here through our winters, we're thinking about just creating this experience so that when people are coming to pick up a bouquet, they can also stroll through these beautiful perennial gardens and really enjoy the different things that we can grow here. A lot of people think that because of our climate that the choices are really limiting in terms of what does survive and thrive here, but we've learned that there are some incredible plants that really grow beautifully here, so we're going to share that. So in the perennial garden, there are plants in all different stages. We have some that are growing through plastic and are really protected from weeds. We have some that are growing in mulch and the weeds have sort of invaded. You can see all these different situations. And right now, in the course of kind of planning this garden, we're thinking about really weed control here. And that's why we might be going to raised beds and, really thoughtful pathways. So in these tunnels, we're growing a couple of different kinds of plants. We have both perennials and annuals planted. And what we've discovered is that we can create a warmer growing zone, even with an unheated tunnel. And some of the plants that just wouldn't survive ordinarily our winters are doing really well in here and coming back each year. And that saves me a lot of time in the spring because I don't have to take cuttings from them. I don't have to replant them. So this is a really exciting development for us. So let's go in here. All right, so all along this side are Heirloom Chrysanthemums, and that's one of the plants that we would ordinarily try to overwinter indoors in the basement or something like that, and have to kind of mother along and water all winter. But now we just leave them here, planted inside this unheated tunnel, and we also protect them from aphids with some insect netting. And they're doing really well in here, and they'll be blooming later this fall when it starts to get cold. And then in this middle row, this is kind of a trial garden of roses, which really struggle outside here in the wintertime. Again, they are prone to aphids and other pests, so the insect netting also protects them. And I co-plant them with different kinds of herbs. This is some rosemary, and there's also some oregano. So they are pretty happy in here. And these are all the kinds of flowers that a lot of our wedding couples get really excited about. So to be able to offer them is wonderful, even if we just, have a few. And then in this far row are a bunch of different annuals. Some celosia. You can see it really loves the heat in here. It's so tall. I do a lot of planting in bulb crates, and that makes these plants portable. So I'll be pulling these eucalyptus out and trying to overwinter them in a heated tunnel. We're going to build a new tunnel with a double layer of plastic and an inflation kit and a heater. And we're going to start hopefully supplying our winter wedding industry. So that's something we're working on this winter. I'm really excited about. All right. So we're going to come around the corner and go into the Dahlia Tunnel now. This is our Dahlia Tunnel, and we're growing these in crates again. And one of the reasons for doing that is that our soil is very heavy, wet clay, and they need something a bit lighter. So we're growing them above ground in crates, and that's also going to make lifting the tubers easier for us in the winter. We don't have to pry them out of that clay. And it also makes watering easier. I can monitor the moisture in the soil much better that way. So yeah, let's walk through here. It's a bit of a jungle. And these plants, they just don't grow this tall outside either. And they also fall victim to all kinds of bugs: tarnished plant bug, Japanese beetles, grasshoppers, earwigs. We're protecting them with insect netting in here, and just kind of, by having them all in one place, able to really focus on them. And we're gonna have a longer season because we have them in this warmer space. So these were planted in crates in here long before the last frost. We were still getting some snow on the ground occasionally, and they're gonna last a long time into the fall in here too. So we try to work our wedding season from mid-May all the way through mid-October. And that's well past our last frost. Our last frost can be around September 1st, right about this time of year sometimes. So this is the time of year that we start to get a little bit nervous, but not for our plants that are in the tunnels. Okay, so let's head back to the back field. This is the newest part of the farm, and it's also the place where we're growing a lot of edibles, different kinds of plants that are traditionally eaten, but we use them for ornamental purposes. So I'll take you through this back field now. Right here in the front, we are growing a whole bunch of different kinds of pumpkins, and a lot of them are small miniature pumpkins, or just kind of unusual or weird looking pumpkins, things that people would like to display for the fall on their tables or in front of their homes. They're also a great addition to our wedding work. So that's why we're growing the pumpkins. We also grow asparagus for the ferns. They are non-wilting. There's some ornamental corn out there. There's some dill, all different kinds of good things. So let's take a peek. So the sort of standouts in the rows here, you can see the sunflowers are really coming in strong. And we grow everything through this black reusable plastic ground cover for weed protection. You can see just past our deer fence is open meadow, and there are tons of weed seeds that are blowing around here all season long. So this helps us protect the plants from weeds, and it also makes things a little bit more efficient for me and our small team when I have people helping me here. When we're planning the gardens, we are doing a substantial amount of planning specifically for wedding clients' needs. So it's kind of a curated event from seed to centerpiece all the way through the end of the process. And sometimes for our clients that can begin 2 years ahead of an event. So you can see there are a couple of rows of foxglove here that were planted last winter, and they are intended for event use next June. So quite a far lead time on this work, but it's worth it. It's really exciting to be able to bring these locally grown, fresh, pesticide-free flowers to people's special events here in the area. And as you look further down the field, we have started to plant a whole bunch of different kinds of flowering shrubs. And a lot of the species that we're adding down there are related to different kinds of shrubs and trees that grow naturally in this environment. So, when you spend some time here in nature, you start to see different kinds of viburnum and dogwood, all these different species of plants that are happy here despite the harsh environment. So we're starting to really kind of try to take advantage of that. And one of the things that we're thinking about always here is how we can work with nature rather than struggle against it. Our climate and our winters are particularly challenging. So if we can make things a little bit easier and work naturally, that's kind of what we're going for. Yeah, so we have all different kinds of winterberry. That's something that we see around here naturally. All different kinds of beautiful viburnums and dogwoods. It's kind of what we consider to be a stick farm. So we're growing these things for their branches for ornamental use. This space was one of the original beds on the farm. And when we first moved here 4 seasons ago, everything was sod, and a local goat dairy farm sent their tractor a few miles down the road, and they did our initial plow. And this was one of the very first places where we started hauling compost by wheelbarrow and shovel. Everything was very manual. And you can see that these beds are in a couple different states. Some have already grown flowers for us this season, and they're going to be rested now for a little while. We're going to add a cover crop to them and really reinvest in their soil. And over here, we're going to be adding the heated tunnel that I was talking about before, which will be right next to a space that we're building for a workshop and walk-in cooler and that sort of thing. So we're trying to really be thoughtful about how things are placed, especially because we're doing a substantial amount of work in the snow in the wintertime. Those structures that are going to be used most often need to be really close together and accessible from the plowed driveway. Great, so in this third tunnel, we have been growing a couple different seasons of flowers, and we try to make the best use of all of our beds here. And so we turn them and switch them from spring to summer pretty quickly. So already in these rows, we've grown ranunculus and anemones and tulips and allium and snapdragons. And we also overwintered some plants in the ground in here that we couldn't plant before the ground froze last season. So that's something that's been really wonderful. You know, sometimes things just get so busy, especially during wedding season. We might have this kind of stockpile of perennial plants that need to go out into the gardens. But if the ground gets hard before we can plant them, we know that we can come into one of these tunnels, put them in the ground here. They'll be so happy over the winter, and in the spring we just dig them up and put them outside before we plant the annual crops. So that's been kind of great. And right now we're growing all different kinds of amaranth. This is really popular for fall wedding work. And it'll last a long time in here where it's protected. And there's some lisianthus on this side, and some lace flowers, and some tweedia. Again, you can really see how things thrive in here. In the tunnels, our nights, even in the summertime, can be pretty cool. Everything is taller and really lush and full in here. So it's amazing the difference when you can grow things under cover. Some of the other things that are under frequent use here, we have a pull-behind trailer that we've converted into cold storage, and there's a cool bot in there. So all of the flowers that we harvest that really need to stay cool to extend their vase life, we protect them in there. And then this is a little prefabricated shed that we've modified and turned into a really great multi-use space. So let's take a peek in there and I'll show you how it works. So right now, this shed is kind of in studio mode, and it's really being used for design purposes. You can see when we bring the flowers in, we have plenty of space to stage them. I also do a lot of photography work for my own purposes in here and to sell them to customers. So I can set them up on the counters and pull out my camera and tripod and get some really beautiful images of them to share with people. We use this space also as a bulb barn because I don't have a big walk-in cooler yet. So in the winter, I will minimally heat this space, and I'll actually stack it full of planted crates of tulips. And they'll be rooting in here at about 40 to 50 degrees before we put them into a warmer space, which has been my cellar with grow lights, with LED lights, to force them into bloom in the wintertime. So our tulips will start blooming at the end of December, and we'll actually be harvesting tulips from that point all the way into June through these different successions inside and outside, in tunnels, in open ground. So that's one of our longest blooming crops, which is pretty incredible because if we just had them outside, that season would be only a few weeks long. And then we also use this space for seed starting. So everything that I'm designing or working when I'm kind of figuring out these spaces has to be multi-purpose. It's a small farm with just me working sometimes or with a few people. So we have to be creative and think about how we can get the most out of every space. So we also use this room for seed starting, and that's sort of happening when the tulip crates are moved out of here. You can see the whole year kind of transition through here. So summertime studio work, wintertime bulb storage, early spring, late winter, we're starting to do seed starting. And all of these shelves, they're also tables that we can use for design work and storage. And we also will remove all of the studio items in the wintertime and hang grow lights under here. Because this shed is insulated, we can start so many seeds in here. And we'll hang lights under these racks. We'll also hang them under these shelves and from the ceiling too, so that we can have, cell trays all lined up in here. So it gets very dirty, but it's useful. And some of my thoughts also about this space for the future are to be able to open up for workshops and classes. So these rolling workspaces will allow more people to come and find a space in a workshop here. So up here on the back wall are all of the rental vessels. We've moved to really encouraging our clients to take advantage of our rental collection so that we are ordering in fewer heavy boxes of vessels throughout the season. So before I did this, I really saw that we were creating a huge carbon footprint with all of the packaging and the shipping of tons of wedding vessels. It was so disheartening to receive all these things in plastic and or broken right before a big event. So we've moved to doing rental vessels, and at the end of the event, I will go back after the clients have really enjoyed the flowers for a few days or however long they like, and recollect these vessels. And then, of course, we keep reinvesting into our collection and updating it per their needs. But yeah, so we're really thinking about how we can operate a clean and green business and work sustainably here at Little Farmhouse Flowers. So we've come to the end of the tour. Thank you for visiting with us. I hope that you'll come here in person or join us for a workshop sometime. And if you'd like to learn more, visit us at www.littlefarmhouseflowers.com.